Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and I'm bringing you something that a lot of you have been asking me for. This is a video which is going to be entirely devoted to crew skills. Now, crew skills in World of Tanks have a profound impact on your performance. Apart from the equipment that you choose and the consumables that you have and even the ammunition type that you use on your tank, it's your only real chance to be different from your opponents. And because you can be different from your opponents, that gives you an opportunity to specialize and be able to enhance the capabilities of your tank in certain situations or make up for flaws in a tank to be able to overcome your enemies effectively. I'm going to give you some basic tips for any new players who are maybe a bit baffled at how some of the crew skills work, and also try and work on some of the more advanced things for players who are maybe starting to get crews that are as skilled as my most skilled crew in the M48A1 here. Having 83% on your 4th skill just provides you with so much more. I've developed the way that I skill up my crews, constantly changing my kind of meta that I would do through my 20,000 games played. I'm going to split this video series up into many different parts for the different tank types, so that you can navigate and not waste your time and get to the information that you need quickly. This video will contain the overall general principles of crew skills. Some of the material that I do cover in this video will be a bit basic, but I want to get everyone up to speed on it, as I'm trying to develop a series that will be very useful to equally a novice player and someone who's racked up thousands of games in World of Tanks. So I'm going to immediately talk about some mistakes that are made. Here we can see a completely fresh commander with 94% base training level. Now, as you know, your commander's training level is very important because 10% of the commander's training level gets added on to your crew. As you can see here, my gunner gains 10% from my commander as a bonus. Once you've got your basic level up to 100%, you can select your common skills or your commander skills. Now, it's very important to differentiate between the common skills and the commander skills. These commander skills will be different depending on what crew member you're using. For example, our gunner gets speciality gunner skills. Well, that's a surprise. And it's the same for a driver, a radio operator, or even a loader. So we'll talk more about the specialist skills that you can get on all of your crew in a minute. I really want to highlight what they call the common skills. Now, it's very important to realize that whereas you can only have one of the special skills on any one of the crew, you can have multiple common skills across the crew. And in fact, the only way to get the maximum benefit of the common skills is to have it on each one of your crew members. As an example here, I have 5 crew members. If I was to have repairs on only one of them, then my tank would only be getting effectively 20% of the full capability of its repair speed bonus. It's the same with camouflage. If you were to have camouflage on, for example, 2 out of 5 of your crew, then you'd only be getting 40% of the possible benefit that you could get if you had camouflage on each of your crew members. Now, I'd just like to highlight that the repair skill will increase the speed that you repair your damage modules. The camouflage will reduce your tank's visibility, meaning it gets spotted only when the enemy gets closer to you. The firefighting ability will put out fires faster, but it actually has absolutely zero effect on preventing fires. Now, one thing that is interesting is Brothers in Arms, which is an ability that when you have it at 100% across all of your crew, will increase their base training level by 5%. To show you an example here on my pattern, we can see that my commander is actually 110%. Now, what that is getting is 5% from having Brothers in Arms on all of the crew, and 5% from having improved ventilation on the tank as well. Now, what's important to realize is that with this discussion that we're having on Brothers in Arms as well, it introduces a new issue that you might come across. There is a difference between regular skills and perks. Now, when you mouse over an ability, it will say if it is a skill or if it is a perk in the tooltip. This is very important to realize because perks have absolutely no benefit on your tank unless they are at 100%. So you could have 99% Brothers in Arms on one of your crew members, but 100% on the other 4 or however many rest of your crew that you have, and you will not be getting any benefit from Brothers in Arms. Brothers in Arms is a very unique ability that you have to have at 100% across all of your crew. And until you achieve that, there's no point in having it. Some of the specialist abilities that you see here are also skills and also perks. The Mentor, for example, is a skill, whereas Sixth Sense is a perk. So you could still get a benefit from Mentor at, for example, 86% up to 99%. But if you were to have 99% Sixth Sense, it would do nothing for your tank. Now, interestingly, the amount of experience that you require to get the higher and higher level skills becomes more and more difficult. It requires more experience. As an example here, this is the commander of my Tortoise tank. He's at 99% of what we would call his second skill. For him to go from his 99% to his 100%, it would require a further 11,400 experience. And you'd be forgiven for thinking that is quite a lot. In fact, taking some of the graphs here straight from the World of Tanks Wikipedia, which I fully recommend you check out, we can see the total experience required for getting 1% of your major qualification, your first, your second, and your third. So for example, to complete your third skill, to get from 99% to 100% is going to require you to get 37,500 experience. Interestingly, when you reach the next tier, you have a lovely period where you accelerate very quickly through the next skill, but then it progressively becomes harder and harder and harder and harder. What that means is it can be very useful indeed once you get over that 99% and you hit 100%, because your tank will accelerate in performance very quickly until you reach about the 80% mark, and then it starts to slow down again. You could almost think of it literally as you're running uphill, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, it's hard, then you're over the hill, and then you get to breathe for a little while again, and oh no, it's even worse this time, oh god. I breathe again, and then oh geez Louise, I'm having to get the walking poles out to be able to traverse this terrain. What this means is that realistically, unless you play thousands and thousands of games in one tank, you're never going to really have above your third or fourth skill. In fact, we can see here that going from 50% of your primary skill, i.e. a stock tank with a completely stock crew, to the 100% will require 95,000 experience. So for a skilled player who averages 1,000 experience a game, that's going to take you 95 battles. So to go from 0% to 100% of your first skill will require 210,000 experience. Now for a skilled player, that will take him 210 battles. But if he was to start from the beginning and then reach the end of his first skill, it will take him 305 battles. To go to the end of your second skill, from 0%, it will require 420,000 experience. I think you're seeing a pattern here, guys. 420 battles. And then going from the start at 50% to 100% of your second skill is 725 battles for a skilled player. Then we're looking at 840 battles to get your third skill, 1,680 to get your fourth, and 3,361 to get your fifth. And unless you literally love one tank more than you love your own children, then you're really not going to be progressing past your fourth or fifth skill. But don't be afraid, because there are a few things that can help you achieve your goals more quickly. Firstly, Wargaming are nice people, and they often like to give us such special events such as double crew training. So if you work hard during the week and you earn some quality time with World of Tanks at the weekend, just don't tell the missus, then you can reap some of the benefits such as double crew experience. This can go as high as triple crew experience, which is a really fantastic opportunity for any of you who maybe want to go and collect your second and your third skills. If you can't play at the weekend, then don't worry, it's not the end of the world. There are still other ways to be able to accelerate more quickly. One is an ability on the commander called Mentor. Now what Mentor does is accelerates your crew experience for all of the crew except the commander. Now let's think about this just quickly. So immediately, the maximum benefit that you will get from Mentor when your commander is at 100% of the crew skill is 10% extra experience across the rest of your crew. So what that means in a tank like the Tortoise, where you do have 6 crew members, the 5 crew members are getting plus 10%. However, in a tank such as the ELC AMX, which only has 2 crew members, that means that only 1 crew is going to be getting 10% benefit. Mentor is also a tricky one because in my opinion, the commander is the crew member that gets the best skills. I feel that you're putting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't have the Sixth Sense skill, and that requires you to have 100% on your first skill as it is a perk. Also, if you check out my other videos based on the camouflage and on the repair skill, you also know how important those are. In my opinion, using Mentor is not viable after you get past your first skill, because as soon as you get past your first skill, if you don't have Sixth Sense, then in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. So Quickie Baby just completely slammed down hard on the mental skill. Well, what else can I do? Okay, well, when you've elited a tank, and eliting means when you've researched every module available on the tank, you get a special gold emblem. Wow, look at it, and it says it's an elite light tank. More importantly, the only really added benefit on this, apart from being able to convert experience off the tank, which I don't recommend to do really, unless you're trying to research new modules on tanks which are just too darn painful to play stock, is that you get this fancy button up here called Accelerated Crew Training. Now there's often a mystery about this Accelerated Crew Training button, so I'm just going to end the mystery for anyone who does not know about it. Once you check the box, you can see this little gold icon appears. What that means is that that crew member is going to be getting double experience in the next game. Also, what you will find is that the crew that gets this double crew experience the next game is your least experienced crew member. So for example, if we compare our driver to our commander here, we can see that our commander has 57% camouflage, whereas our driver only has 53%. What that means is that our driver will be getting the bonus, and he will be able to catch up to the commander. And that's one of the excellent features that you get for the Accelerated Crew Training. The fact that least experienced crew members will eventually catch up, and that's a great thing to have. So interestingly, the same sort of theory applies to small crew tanks for this Accelerated Crew Training. If you only have to have 2 crew members, then effectively, they're each going to get doubled every other game. So accelerating crew training on the ELC AMX will actually increase the total experience that your tank crew get by 50%, i.e. one of your crew member gets 200%, one of your crew member gets 100%, you're going from 200 to 350% extra. However, going back to the tortoise, if you click that accelerated crew training, that means that only one of your 6 crew will get the double, i.e. 600% goes to 700%, and that's 16% extra total tank crew EXP. What this means is that the speed at which, for example, an ELC AMX will reach its 4th or 5th skill is much quicker than, for example, a tortoise would. However, at the end, of course, you're going to have much more crew. So, for example, this little radio operator who will not be used on the FB 215 183mm can go and be used on some other tank. What I'm trying to highlight is that even though having large crewed tanks will slow your progress, it doesn't necessarily mean that in the long run it's going to be a bad thing, because you're going to have more crew to be able to use. Of course, if you're only ever going to keep this crew on this tank, then yeah, it is going to slow you down a lot in the long run. And that's why you don't see many 4-skill crews on very large heavy tanks, and for example, tanks such as this in the Tortoise that requires 6 crew. So before I go through each of the skills individually and try and get you up to date with what they do and why they're important, the only other key thing for me to tell you is the special properties of premium tanks. Now, the special property of premium tanks that quite a surprising amount of people do not know about is the fact that they can use crew from equal classes of tanks of equal nations without penalty. So here's an example. I want to put a commander in my KV4. Now, while I'm able to use my KV4 commander, if for some reason I wanted to use my IS3 commander, the crew would get a penalty. Now, the penalty for using a same class of crew in the tank is 25%. So this commander would lose 25% of his crew skill. Now, this is even worse, for example, if I put my ISU 152 crew member in this tank, because it's taking a tank destroyer crew and putting it in a heavy tank. The penalty that this gentleman will get will be 50%. However, if I take that IS3 crew member and put him in my KV5, which is a Russian heavy premium tank, he gets absolutely no penalty. Now, without going into detail, everyone knows that premium tanks make bonus credits. And what this means is that you can use crew from different tanks while you're making money. As an example, I like to put in my IS3 crew into my KV5, along with also taking a couple of crew from my KV1S. And what that means is that I get all the benefits from having brothers in arms on all of my crew, and they all get trained up fairly quickly while I make the bonus credits that the premium tanks do. Now I'm going to go over all the different crew skills that are specific to the 5 different crew types: the commander, the gunner, the driver, the radio operator, and the loader. Now, apart from taking the common skills, which I went over earlier, the commander can take mentor, which I've covered. He can take recon, which at 100% will increase your tank's view range by 2%. Jack of all trades allows the commander to replace crew that have been injured in the fight. If the commander is replacing one crew, he's able to perform 50% of the role that he does while he's alive. And if he's replacing two crew, then he's able to do only 25% of that crew member as if he was alive. Eagle Eye will allow your commander to identify critically damaged modules on targeted vehicles. What you'll have to do is put your reticule over the enemy tank and it will tell you what modules on the enemy tank are damaged or destroyed. Then we have Sixth Sense. This is by far the most useful skill in the game. What will happen is that 3 seconds after you have been seen by the enemy, your commander will have an epiphany. That's right, exactly 3 seconds after the event, where he will suddenly realize that he has been spotted, and he will alert you with a big flashing light bulb. Or if you've downloaded my mod pack, a big, fat, ugly, quickie baby face will appear on your screen. Now, the reason why this is the most important skill is because it just allows you so much benefit. One, if you've been spotted, you generally won't stay, for example, in that bush. You're going to pull back. Two, if you get spotted, you can tell if there are enemies who are unseen, but you can generally pinpoint where they're likely to be. Oh, I'm going through the forest on Moravanka. I've been spotted. It's quite likely that there's a tank destroyer just ahead of me, maybe 50 meters in the trees. One of the most powerful uses of Sixth Sense is coming around corners. You poke out, you pull back, before even Sixth Sense would have gone off. Literally, you go out for a second and you pull back. Then, if your Sixth Sense pings, that means, wow, it's definitely not a good idea to go down there. However, if it doesn't go off, then you can go back out and pretty much know that you're going to be able to go down that alleyway without receiving a hell of a lot of fire. Now let's look at the specialty gunner skills. There's Designated Target. This is a perk that means that any tanks that you have within a very thin view range of your reticule will stay revealed for 2 extra seconds compared to what they would do if you didn't have this perk. This still means that you need to be aiming at the tank that you want to keep designated with this perk, or it will not have any effect. What this means is that this ability isn't really going to have much effect if you just want to go and poke over a ridge line as a scout and then pull back and not focus on mousing over an enemy target. However, it'll be a lot more useful if, for example, you poke over there into a bush, you spot a few enemy tanks without being detected, and then you keep your gun moused over the target. Even if he pulls back behind the ridge, he's going to be spotted for 2 extra seconds for your team. And this does work for artillery. Those 2 extra seconds can give your artillery, for example, the extra time that they need to be able to pinpoint the target and put the shot in. And so for a scout or a medium tank who really wants to be able to designate targets through scouting, this can be an invaluable asset. And I've recently started using it on my Type 64 crew. Armor is an ability which is probably best suited to tank destroyers and some heavy tanks that like to get shot in the mantler a lot. It improves the accuracy that your gunner can have even if the gun is damaged. We all know just how frustrating it can be to have a damaged gun after you've already used your repair kit, and that's what this armorer skill is for. The amount that this actually physically reduces the penalty by is 20% when you reach 100% of this skill. Then there's Deadeye. This is a perk that increases your chance to cause damage to enemy modules and crew by 3%. It is effective, however, only with APCR and heat round. So don't think that you're going to be able to HE splash the enemy with your artillery and have any effect using Deadeye. Next, there's Snapshot, an ability which will reduce the penalty that you receive through traversing your turret by 7.5% on your accuracy. Next, let's look at Controlled Impact. This increases the damage that you will do during collisions to the enemy and reduce the damage that you take. The effect is of 15%, and this can be huge on tanks, for example, such as the KV-5 or the E50. Next, there's Off-Road Driving. Off-Road Driving decreases the penalty that you will have of your tank being able to both accelerate and traverse on soft terrain by 10%, medium terrain by 2.5%, but it will have no effect on hard terrain, such as concrete or asphalt. Smooth Ride is for all of you tankers who like to shoot on the move, and it will decrease the penalty that you get from shooting on the move by 4%. Preventative Maintenance is a perk that can reduce your chance of fire from engine damage by 25%. Now, this is a huge perk for some front-mounted engine tanks such as the E75 or the E100. Clutch Braking is a skill which increases your traverse speed of your tank by 5%. Next, we're looking at the Radio Operator. Situational Awareness can increase your view range by 3%. Call for Vengeance will allow you to keep transmitting radio operation for a further 2 seconds after you have been destroyed. Signal boosting will boost your signal range by 20%, and relaying will boost your friendly communications by 10%. Intuition is a very interesting ability. What it does is give your tank 17% chance to instantly change the type of shell that is loading. So for example, say you've got an AP shell loaded and you want to fire heat because that mouse has just come out in front of you and you want to waft one in straight through his turret, then there'll be a 17% chance that you'll instantly load that heat shell and allow you to fire instantly. One thing that's not known is that the intuition perk is actually cumulative. What that means is that if you've got 2 loaders with this perk, this effect is increased to 34%. So that's over a 1 in 3 chance of instantly changing shell types if you've got 2 loaders with this perk. Adrenaline Rush is for all you guys who end up being left on low HP. If your hit points are less than 10% of your total hit points, then it effectively adds a gun rammer to your tank and you will load shells 10% more quickly. However, don't try getting this perk on both of your loaders if you do have 2 in your tank, as its effects are not cumulative. And then finally, Safe Stowage. Safe Stowage is a fantastic perk which reduces the chance of your ammo rack being damaged upon hit by 12.5%. There are certain tanks, such as the Leopard prototype, or quite a few of the American top-tier tanks, that simply have to have this, because of their front and even side-mounted ammo racks. So guys, there you have it. I have explained to you everything that you need to know about crew skills. I'm also releasing other videos which tell you exactly what crew skills you should use, in my opinion, in your light tanks, your medium tanks, your heavy tanks, your tank destroyers, and I'll even do an artillery skypick video. So guys, I hope this has explained everything that you needed to know. If this video has been useful to you, please consider rating it down below. I'd really appreciate it. And why not think about checking out my other videos in this series? As always, leave me a comment if there's something that I've left out, if you feel it's really important, and tell me what you think about everything and anything in this video. So guys, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.